Every time I try to make it on my own, every time I try to stand and start to fall, and on those lonely roads that I have traveled on, there was Jesus. When the life I built came crashing to the ground, when the friends I had were nowhere to be found, I couldn't see it then, but I could see it now. There was Jesus. In the waiting, in the searching, in the healing and the hurting, like a blessing buried in the broken pieces. Every minute, every moment, where I've been and where I'm going, even when I didn't know it or couldn't see it, there was Jesus. For this man who needs amazing kind of grace, for forgiveness and a price I couldn't pay. Oh, I'm not perfect, so I thank God every day. There was Jesus. There was Jesus. In the waiting, in the searching, in the healing and the hurting, like a blessing buried in the broken pieces. Every minute, every moment, where I've been and where I'm going, even when I didn't know it or couldn't see it, there was Jesus on the mountain, in the valley, in the shadows of the alley, in the fire and in the flood, always is and always was. No one ever walked alone. You were always there. Oh, in the waiting, in the searching, in the healing and the hurting, like a blessing buried in the broken pieces. Every minute, every moment, where I've been and where I'm going, even when I didn't know it, I couldn't see it, there was Jesus. There was Jesus.
There was Jesus. There was Jesus.
This past week, we had our state meeting in Columbus, and there's 118 churches, Free Will Baptist churches in Ohio. And of that, there was a representation of pastors and different people in the churches. Met in Columbus for 3 days for our state meeting, is what it's called. And it was kind of interesting. Friday night at the end of service, our state promotional secretary, Ben Crabtree, he's been here before. We love Ben. And so Ben said, hey, I saw somebody do this somewhere. And he said, I'd like to do it here just to honor, because they were honoring different ones. He said, do we have any pastors or preachers who have been in ministry for more than 30 years? Would you please stand up? And I'm sitting there and I'm looking around. I'm thinking, man, those guys are old. And then I started thinking back, I wonder how long it's been for me. And I started thinking, wait a minute. I was ordained in May of 1994. So I've been in ministry 2.5 years prior to. I'm thinking, I've been in ministry 32 years. So I had to stand up. I'm thinking, they don't look so old anymore. Those guys, they're young. Look how young they look, you know. And it's like, wow, man, where in the world has the time gone? I've been in ministry for 30 years. And you know, it just kind of made me have a reality check. Logically thinking, I'm in the last half of my ministry. I mean, I don't know that I have another 30 years in me. You ain't have any money? How you do it? You know, I'll be 81. I mean, that's crazy. But no, in preparation for this sermon this morning, I began thinking back. My mind was just flooding back, and I was thinking back to 2006. I was 33. I had recently, as soon as like July of 2005, I had left my first church where I had pastored for about 7 years. And I'll just say this right out of the gate, I had no business being a pastor. I look back, they put me in as a pastor the day after I turned 26, and I promise you, I had no business being a pastor. I had no idea what I was doing, absolutely. I had never been taught about missions. I'd never been taught about outreach. I'd never been taught about sharing our faith, and that sounds so foreign to me now. But basically, the mindset that we were taught and what we practice just the way it is basically if somebody wants to be a Christian, they're going to see my life, they're going to see how I live, and if that's something that appeals to them, they'll show up to church and they'll come along and they'll be a Christian too. That's just kind of how it was, which I'm not going to go down this rabbit trail. That is totally contrary to the whole mindset, the concept of the New Testament, by the way. But I remember I was at actually a quarterly church conference meeting, and a missionary showed up, a guy by the name of Woody White. I'll never forget Woody. He's a great man. I love him. And he introduced us and told us about a group of guys who would go to Mexico, and they would help build churches, and they were called Berean Ministries. And long story short, I ended up making 5 trips to Mexico with the Berean Ministries group. I actually sat on their board for a while. But that was the first taste that I ever got of just reaching people and sharing my faith and showing people the love of Jesus, and I was hooked. We would go down and we would lay block or pour concrete or mix mortar or dig a hole or a trench or whatever all day long, and then we would go get cleaned up, have dinner. Well, after dinner, we would go out into a nearby village or town, wherever we were at, and a lot of times we would have little gospel tracts. You guys know what I'm talking about when I say a gospel tract. It's a little booklet or pamphlet that just explains how to know Jesus, become a Christian. And so we would begin handing those out, and they taught me a Spanish word, regala. Now, I don't know Spanish. They could have been teaching me a word, billy goat. I don't know what regala means, but they said if you say regala, senor, or regala, senorita, and they said senorita, especially if it's an older woman, that's a flattering term. That's young lady. And so, you say regala, senor, or regala, senorita, and especially the old ladies, they light up when you call them young lady. But you'd say regala, and they would turn and look. It would get their attention. I don't know what regala means. It could have been, hey, you, I don't know. But they would turn and they would see what you had, and you would hand them this, and they would take it and they would read it. And I remember one time we were in Mexico City, and the sidewalks in Mexico City, I don't know if you've ever been there or not, are extremely wide. It seemed like they were as wide as this building. I mean, they are huge sidewalks down each side of the road. And I remember I had that year I wore cargo pants on purpose because they had extra pockets. And I had my pockets shoved full of over 500, close to probably 1,000 gospel tracts. I had a jacket on. It was about 70 degrees. I had a hoodie on. I mean, everything I could wear that had extra pockets, I had them full. And we're down there, and I'm handing out regala, senor, regala. And it was like a swarm of people come around me. And I'm just handing them out as fast as I can. And they'd found out I had 2 or 3 different ones, and they'd want all of them. And in a matter of less than an hour, I was out of gospel tracts. I had no more gospel tracts. And so I thought, okay, now's the real test. Here's the real acid test, the litmus test. I'm going to walk up and down this sidewalk, both sides, and I'm going to check in the trash cans. I'm going to look down in the ditch, the alleyway. I'm going to look and see how many of these things are just laying around or in the trash. You know how many I found? 0. Not a one. I saw probably 5 or 6 people. I saw one guy leaning up against a porn stop reading one of our gospel tracts. I thought about taking a picture of him, but there was some stuff in the background. I thought, I don't want that in the background. But what an awesome message. This guy, he was a police officer, had a full military, had an automatic weapon hanging on, standing in front of a porn shop, reading the gospel tract. I thought, how amazing is that? That's the power of God. I thought, man, this is so cool. And so then when I came home, You know, I had that same fire, but I kind of felt like a hypocrite. Because it was like the thought that I had in my mind saying, you'll travel 2,000 miles to tell people about Jesus, but you won't even talk to the person that lives on the same street as you. You don't even talk to the people you work with. You don't even talk to anybody outside of those who go to church with you. What's the point? Why would you go all that way if you're not going to walk across the street? So I went the whole door knocking route. You know, I learned that. I took the Anderson course, you know, Hyles Anderson College course on soul winning and evangelism. I had all the cassettes, and sir, tonight, if you would die, do you know where you'd be for eternity? The whole spiel, I had it all down. Guess what? I found out everybody on my street was a Christian. And they all went to a church in Mansfield. If I said the name, you'd know it. Even though on Sunday mornings when we would leave for church, I'd see them loading the golf bags, loading the boat up, doing all this stuff. And I'm like, man, what? You guys got some cool stuff going on at your church. I found out door knocking doesn't work in the U.S. And neither does handing out gospel tracts. I tried all that. Basically, let me just say this. American Christians as a whole, and this might rock your world, and I'm not trying to insult any of your heritage or where you came from, but let me just say this. American Christians as a whole have done a horrible job of representing Jesus. Most people who are not Jesus followers have a negative mindset when it comes to church people. They look at us as judgmental, critical. You think you're better than us. You think you're holier than we are. Who do you think you are? And they literally have very poor opinions of who and what we are. That's because a lot of times that's the way we come across. That's the way we try to appeal to people. Like, you're there, we're here. If you want to be somebody, you need to come to where we are. And so we've done a horrible job of representing Jesus. And because of that, you've maybe heard the term gospel hardened. And that's why when you hand out 100 gospel tracts here in the States, 99 of them will end up in the trash or in the garbage. Or they'll be defaced or something along that line. So seeing this, experiencing all that, it quenched my flame. It just deflated me. And that's when I began praying about reaching people at home. Lord, I would love just to go to Mexico and just hand out gospel tracts. It's so cool, so rewarding, but I don't live there. I live here, and this is where you have me. So how can I reach people? And that's when I discovered a book. You can Google anything, how to reach your community for Jesus. And I discovered a book by the name of 101 Ways to Reach Your Community, written by a guy by the name of Stephen Sjorgen. And basically, he introduced me to a term called servant evangelism. And servant evangelism is simply going where people are, meeting a real or a felt need, and expecting nothing in return. And I thought, man, what an amazing concept. This is awesome. And it blew my mind when I began to wrap my brain around what this guy was saying. But when you stop and think about it, it's not a new program. This isn't something new. This isn't a new idea. This is what Jesus did. When Jesus fed the 5,000, those people weren't starving. They weren't on the verge of starvation. Nobody was in danger of dying. They just were probably kind of really hungry. And Jesus said, hey, guess what? I've given you spiritual food. Would you all like to have something to eat? And they were like, well, yeah. And Jesus started giving them bread and fish. And they're like, this is pretty cool. It was a felt need. It was something that they felt they needed. And Jesus said, hey, let me show you God's love. Let me meet that need for you. And I go through all that. Jesus' whole ministry was that way. Obviously, there was real needs, and he met those as well. But what Jesus did is he simply put love into action. He went where the people were, and he met those needs, and he showed them his love. That is the purpose of why we do outreach. That is why we have outreach events. And it might seem cheesy, it might seem unimportant, it might seem trivial to somebody. You really think giving somebody a pen, giving somebody a bag to carry their stuff in is going to change their eternity? It might. At least it's going to give them something to think about. Who would have thought a ballpoint pen would ever do anything? But I tell you what, you go ask Ashland City police officers what their favorite pen is, they'll tell you a Compassion Church pen is their favorite pen. And if you've ever had a ticket written by a Compassion Church pen, you probably deserved it. No, I'm just teasing. But I promise you, it was written very well. No. The whole purpose of our outreach events, the whole purpose we do outreach is I want to meet a real need. Because people really have a need. They need Jesus. And my prayer is that people will see the display of kindness. They'll see us showing love, loving others like Jesus loves us. Asking nothing in return. No favors. Not, hey, will you come to church with me if I do it? Nothing in return. I'm not asking anything in return. But all we want is for them to maybe rewire their brain and how they think about church. You know, most churches are, would you give, would you give, would you give, would you come, would you come, would you come, would you. Jesus is, can I serve, can I give, can I offer, can I be there, can I help, can I lift you up, can I strengthen you, can I help you? See if this is true in your life for a minute. Have you ever had someone do a random act of kindness for you? Maybe you're in the drive-thru and you pull up to the window to pay for your meal and someone has already paid for your lunch. Maybe it was the person you're at the Walmart parking lot, you're going to put your, all your groceries away, and someone walks by and says, "Hey, can I take your cart and return it to their little cart corral thing, whatever it is for you?" Now, you may not know that person at all. You may not even see their face, especially if they're in the car in front of you. But I promise you this, you're probably going to have the thought, that's an all right person. That's a pretty good person. I don't know anything about them, don't know their name. They could be a serial killer for all I know. I don't know. But they probably are an all right person. Chances are they probably are. Imagine if that person was wearing a T-shirt, had a church name on it, website. On the back, maybe had a message, loving others like Jesus loves me. You might have the thought, you know what? That's probably a pretty cool church. That's probably a pretty good church. Now, you may not begin attending there. You may not start attending and jump on board and get involved in everything. But I tell you what you will do. You'll remember that church's name. And you'll remember the kindness they showed you too. You'll associate that kindness with that church's name. That's why everything we give away has Compassion Church on it. And sooner or later, everyone will need a church. Sooner or later in your life, there will be a need, there will be something comes up, and you'll be like, man, I'd like to talk to a pastor. Man, I'd like to have somebody pray for me. I'd like to get in contact with somebody who could help me with this situation. And when you do that, when you come to that place in your life, you know what church you're going to think of? You're going to think of the church that was kind to you. You're going to think of the church that showed some love, expecting nothing in return. Well, that's where the conflict comes in. That's where the issue arises, and that's why you see everything that you see this morning. I can't do this alone. I can't do this by myself. I need some help. More specifically, I need your help. As in everybody. I need everybody's help. And in case you haven't figured it out this morning, that's why I'm preaching the sermon, Help Wanted. Now, I'll say this. I'm not the first pastor who is inadequate and incapable and needs help. I'm not the first one who has begged for people to participate and get involved and kind of lean in. I'm not the first one to go, hey, help. There was another guy who also needed help. He was a master communicator. He could hold people's attention almost without blinking for hours on end, days on end even. He was an impeccable, flawless leader who never made a mistake in any course, any direction, any leadership decision he made ever. I made quite a bit, by the way. And he had endless resources. Anything he wanted was at his fingertips. He simply had to say it, and it was. You know who I'm talking about? Jesus. Jesus needed help. Think about that. Jesus needed help. I don't know about you, but that blows my mind if you really stop and think about who and what Jesus is. When Jesus began sharing his message of love and grace, he didn't do it alone. We all know, if you've been around church, I say that we all know, but maybe you don't know, he called 12 guys to be his guys, to come and help him share his message of love and grace. Now, I'll tell you this, they were highly unqualified. They were highly, highly unqualified. They didn't fit the bill. They were a ragtag team, and you know, if there was anybody who, well, I just don't feel comfortable doing that because I don't have training, it was these guys. I mean, the Apostle Peter, if you really look at it, was very likely illiterate, completely illiterate. That's why he didn't write his epistle till the end of his life, because he probably learned how to read somewhere along the way, but he was illiterate most likely. Jesus said, you're going to be the rock that I'm going to start my church with. I mean, I'm getting off on a sidetrack here. Anyhow, Jesus used a group of guys who were highly unqualified. And he said, I want you to go. Well, then after they started getting it, he went and found more. According to Luke 10, where we're going to be looking this morning, he found 72 more, to be exact. And I don't know if you can do the math. It's 84 altogether. Now, every church today struggles to find volunteers to help in any capacity. I get emails, I get blogs, I get things from Lifeway and Tom Rayner and different things saying, you know, how to recruit volunteers, or how to recruit and retain volunteers, how to get help, how to have your volunteers blow up, how to, all this stuff. I get all the emails every week. And you name it, it's a challenge. That's why if you looked on your way in, you saw help wanted signs strategically posted all through the church. It's a struggle to get people just to accept the challenge. Sometimes just to find a warm body, the only requirement is you got to have a pulse. All right, good, you're it. Let's go. Just to find people that will fill a position, let alone to find people that have a skill set and a desire. That's stronger than anything. A desire to do what needs done and to do it well. I heard them say this weekend down in Columbus, it's better to have no one than it is to have the wrong one. That's one reason around here we've got so many vacant positions. It's because we learned the hard way, haven't we, Zach? We learned the hard way. You better just keep praying for the right ones, because you'll be better off in the long run. But did you know that this struggle, this challenge to find volunteers, to find people who will get actively involved, is not a 21st century church problem? This is a New Testament church problem. Jesus dealt with this also. Let's look and see how he dealt with this dilemma. Now, this is, like I said, we're going to be looking at Luke 10 this morning. In this scene, in the life of Jesus' public ministry, it takes place in the second year of his ministry. And people have labeled it later on, obviously, as the year of popularity, because what was going on in Jesus' life is people were hearing his message. Many of them were responding in a positive manner. They were, groups gathering. He was gaining credibility among the common people. And all at the same time, he was becoming a little bit more on the radar for the religious leaders who wanted to kind of shut him up. And so his disciples, though, they still have no idea of the grand scheme, the extent of Jesus' ministry, and how far it will actually go. But Jesus knows that his time is limited. He knows he is in a time constraint as far as the time he has with his disciples here on earth. And so there's an urgency that you will begin hearing in his messages and in his speaking. And he gets more urgent, and he gets more, down to the rubber meets the road type stuff. And hey, this is what's going to happen. I'm not going to be here. I'm going to go. And you better pay attention, and you better step up. And so with this in mind, with this mindset, Jesus adds 72 others to his group, and he sends them out in twos. He sends them out in pairs to the surrounding villages to spread and share his message of love and salvation. Look on the screen here at Luke 10 at how he does this and what he says. He says, "The harvest is great, but the workers are few. So pray to the Lord who is in charge of the harvest and ask him to send more workers into his fields." Now, Jesus, as in God in the flesh, he fully understands the magnitude of the mission to share his grace and love with the world. And when he says the harvest is great, but the workers are few, he's speaking comparatively. When you compare the monumental size of the task of sharing the gospel of Jesus Christ with the whole world, with the number of those who are actively willing to engage and reach in these individuals, the workers are few. So the first thing Jesus requests of these disciples, all 84 of them at this point, is that you pray that God will call or he will send more workers into his field. Now, you've all heard the expression, many hands make light work. We've all heard that before, and that sense of community when everybody gets involved. But can I also tell you that few hands make it slow, grueling, and even depressing work? I've experienced that personally. I've seen that. I've gone through that. I've dealt with that. And I can attest to you, that is true. But when there's many people who are at the work that Jesus has called us to, there's a sense of camaraderie. Remember we talked a while back about every person has a sense of wanting to belong, wanting to be part of a group that is like-minded, like people. It's community. We all want to have a sense of belonging. That's why we have clubs, like-minded clubs. This is what I'm talking about this morning. Coming together for a common purpose, for a common goal, with a common heart. And as those who come together to accomplish this common goal, their energy to accomplish this task, it just amazes you when you begin to look and see what God does through those who are actively involved in this work. Now, after requesting that his disciples ask God for more workers to engage in this task and that he would send them out, I want you to look at the details of how they should go and where they should go. Look at it. He says, now go. Some translations say go now, or now you should go, as in right now. Not, after Little League's over, not after it's, it's not baseball season, it's not basketball season, it's not football season, it's not soccer season, it's not this, that. It's always some kind of season. Not then. Not when things get a little easier. Not when my schedule's not so full. Your schedule's always going to be full. So he just cuts to the chase. Now go. Go now. And remember that I am sending you. I love that word sending. I'm going to geek out on here, the Bible geek word stuff here. That's commission. charging, sending as in an ambassador. You are going on my behalf. You are speaking for me. I am sending you. He said, I am sending you out as lambs among wolves. Hold on to that thought. I'll come back to that. Don't take any money with you, nor a traveler's bag, nor an extra pair of sandals. And don't stop to greet anyone on the road. Now, there's a whole lot in there. I'm going to unpack it for you here in just a little bit. But look at what Jesus says regarding the 84 and how he should send them. As lambs among wolves. What comes to your mind when you think about lambs among a pack of wolves? Vulnerable, weak, exposed, dangerous. Obviously, all those things, probably a whole lot more. Listen, Jesus doesn't sugarcoat the risk involved by engaging unbelievers on his behalf. He said, I understand there's a real and present danger. And the reason he uses this analogy among a group of people who are familiar with sheep and shepherding and the whole deal is that he understands, they'll understand what he's getting at. They'll understand the word picture he's trying to paint for them. They know that sheep are never left in the wild to fend for themselves. They have a shepherd who carefully watches over them and protects them. Just as is true in nature, Jesus is reminding his disciples that as they go out sharing his message, they don't go alone. That's one reason he sent them out in pairs. But also as their shepherd, as in the great shepherd, he wants them to realize that he will be with them. I'm going with you. My Spirit. If I'm challenging you and I'm sending you and I'm commissioning you to go, don't worry. I'm going to go with you. This is why he doesn't want them to lean to their own needs as they go and, worrying about taking care of all the stuff. See it here in the latter part of this? He's essentially what he's saying is don't take anything extra along with you. I want you to rely upon me. I want you to trust me. You see, too many times, and this is where we kind of count ourselves out, we think that the whole responsibility of sharing Jesus' love and his message of salvation relies upon our shoulders. It doesn't. Jesus has told us, listen, I will be with you. I will take care of you. I will help you. You don't feel prepared, I will prepare you. You don't feel adequate, I will make you adequate. You don't think you're capable of fitting it in, I will make you available. I will help you with the time. I will work it out for you. Jesus said, I'll be with you. In fact, the last instructions that Jesus ever verbally gave to his disciples before he returned to heaven, as he was returning to heaven, made this very clear in Matthew 28 when he said there, be sure of this, I am with you always, even to the end of the ages. I'm with you. Don't forget that. You're not alone in this. And at the end of our text, after Jesus reassures them that he is going before them, he's going with them, and they're not going to be alone, he reminds his disciples of how urgent this is. You see it there at the end? He says, don't greet anyone on the road. Don't stop and greet anyone on the road. Jesus wasn't telling them to be rude. That's how a lot of people take it, I'm doing this, and no, I'm, almost rude about it. This was a reminder of how important it is to stay on task. The word translated as greet can mean embracing in one's arms. It's used to describe a long, drawn-out exchange of heartfelt words. Think of somebody you haven't seen in a long time, a close friend, relative you haven't seen in a long time, and you finally see them, and what do? You want to catch up, don't you? You want to catch up with everything that's going on in their life, and then you want to fill them in with all the details in your life since you last saw them. And Jesus basically says, listen, my mission is so important. It is so vital that this gets done. Don't waste any time getting sidetracked with your personal endeavors. Don't waste your time doing that, because what I'm giving you to do is too important to get sidetracked. Listen, if we're going to show our friends, our family, our co-workers, the community, what the love of Jesus looks like, it's going to take all of us getting involved in his mission, not my mission. This isn't me. It's much bigger than me. That means we must stay on task. Even when it seems like we're not seeing the results that we envisioned. Missy and I were having a conversation this morning before we came. She said, why do you think so many people when we first started were so willing and so interested in getting involved? I said, because it was new. I said, people had a misconceived notion that we're going to go and we're going to do this outreach and people are going to just flood in and we're going to grow and it's going to be the hugest thing ever. That's not why he said go. He said go because I'm sending you. He said go because you need to share my love. He said go because you need to do what I'm asking you to do and let them worry about what they do with what I ask them to do. Going requires us to shift our priorities. Think about what your average week looks like. How much time do you personally, and I'm not getting into all your business, I don't need to see your Google Calendar, but how much time do you spend doing something that promotes and shares Jesus' message of love and grace? Coming to church doesn't count, by the way. How much time do you spend in a week actively sharing the love of Jesus with somebody? You know, we get caught up. We get caught up in everything around us, our work schedule, our activity schedule, and everything that Jesus has called us to do gets put on the back burner. Or it gets our leftover time, our leftover energy. And you know how I know this? Because that's my battle too. That's my battle. You say, oh, the pastor? Yeah, I'm a real person. I will probably forget to call you back when I'm supposed to. You know why? I'm busy. I'm sorry, by the way, I didn't return your text. I do that sometimes. I get busy. And so I know it's your battle too. Because when I invite people to get involved with one of our outreach events, or even an event that is just designed to bring us all closer together, just a cookout, the response I usually get is, well, if I have time. Or, I'm sorry, we're busy. Blah, blah, blah. Who's not busy? We're all busy. Everybody has life. You know, it kills me. Don't complain that Compassion Church is stale and stagnant, but then refuse to do anything that will help Compassion Church not be stale or stagnant. I mean, that's rocket science, right? Jesus wanted his disciples to make his mission a priority in their life. Put it on the top shelf. Give it top priority. He's asking us to do the same. It must be a priority in our life also. Now, if you're not a Jesus follower, maybe you don't even believe in God, you're just here because someone made you come or someone invited you to come, you're off the hook for what I'm about to tell you, okay? Just, check out if you want. And after I say what I'm about to say, you might be glad you're not a Jesus follower because, your time is valuable. You got things you need to get done. I get it. But if you call yourself a Christian, if you call yourself a Jesus follower, then what I'm about to tell you isn't a helpful suggestion. It's not even good advice. It's an imperative. That just simply means it's something we must do. As a Jesus follower, it is part of what it means to be a Christian. You say, what is it? Jesus' work is great. That means it's too much for a few to do on their own. If we follow Jesus, that means we obey his commands, right? That means that we want the same things that he wants. So what does he want? He wants us to be the answers to the prayers for more workers. He wants us to rely on him as we go and not say, well, I just don't feel adequate. I can't. I just don't feel prepared. God didn't give you that thought. And he wants us to embrace the urgency of his message. Basically, as Jesus followers, we must, I can't overemphasize that, must fulfill his request to go share his love with others. Charles Spurgeon, a 19th century English preacher, said it like this: if we don't go, we cannot call ourselves Christians. It's that simple. Now, time out just real quick, and I understand I'm already into overtime. Give me just 5 more minutes, okay? Maybe you really can't go. I get it. Maybe you can't actively go and reach others. I get it. People have health issues. I mean, that's why for the last year and a half, we've really just basically just tried to keep the doors open, because my life has been a little busy, in case you haven't figured that out, with things other than church outreach. I get it. People have responsibilities, health issues, conflicting work schedules, other responsibilities. Maybe that's you. Maybe that's where you're at right now in your life. But let me ask you this. If that is you, when was the last time you prayed for God to send other helpers? When was the last time you prayed that God would send more helpers? If you can't go, not won't go, can't go. If you really can't go, you can at least pray for others as they go. And you can encourage those that can go to go. Those that you have influence over. We can all do that much. Don't worry, guys. She'll take care of him. Pay attention to what's going on up here. Listen, time is running out. If Jesus returns tomorrow, will you be able to say, I've been doing everything you've asked me to do, Lord, to the best of my ability to reach others for you, Jesus? Or will you say, man, I was just busy. I was busy. I just didn't have time to get involved with all that stuff. Jesus, I didn't have time to take a weekend and go to the balloon festival and say, hey, would you like a bag to carry all the stuff you got? Hey, would your child like a balloon? Graham, would you like a balloon? He was, yeah, look at that. He got his attention. I don't have time to do that. What's the point? It's irrelevant. I guarantee it made that little boy's day. And you know what? When you make a child's day, mama's happy too. Look at her smiling. It's that simple. It's that simple. Showing people the love of Jesus. Jesus said his mission is great. That means it's huge. It's a task with monumental consequences. Shouldn't it be the priority in a Jesus follower's life? Shouldn't that be our priority? Think about this just for a minute as I bring this in for a landing. What would it look around here if every Jesus follower in the room made sharing the love of Jesus a priority in their life? Missy told me this morning. She said, Trav, I'll help you pack up the bags. I'll help you blow up balloons. But I can't work the table. I can't talk to people. You know that. She said, I would if I could. I said, baby, if there's one person that I believe would set everything aside and do what we need to do and talk to people, it's you. I don't worry about you. She said with tears in her eyes, above eating, above everything else, talking to people, tell them about Jesus is what I miss the most. It's what I wish I could do. You might hear that and say, Travis, I don't even know where to begin. I don't even know where to start. What do I do? How do I go? How do I get involved? Let me offer you some suggestions real quick, and we're done. If you noticed on your way in this morning, I got these help wanted signs strategically placed. It wasn't by random act. I strategically put them in certain places. First one you saw was by the greeters table. Second one was on the doorway going back to the children's ministry. Then by the sound booth over on the piano. Listen, we need help with the worship team. We need singers. Today is June 23rd. You say, big deal. 2 months from today, I dropped my daughter off at college. Rachel. That's a minimum of 30%, 33% of our worship team. Most of the time, it's 50% of our worship team. We need help. We need someone who's willing to sing, who can sing harmony, understands music, to step in, step up, let your voice be heard. We used to have musical stands, guitar stands. I got rid of most of them because it was too depressing to see them with nobody playing them. We need help in the children's ministry. The women who take care of the children's ministry, they are overloaded. Some of them are feeling burnt out because they've done it for so long. Thank you to those who have stepped up. We got some help coming, but we need more help. In the sound booth, Mike and Terry, I love them. I told them, I said, if you guys leave the church, I'm leaving too. You can't go. I don't know what I'd do with that. They are generally the first ones here every Sunday and the last ones to leave every Sunday. They purposely work their vacation schedules around Compassion Church. Guess what? They're human. They need help. They need somebody who can take it. Listen, I'd like to say I taught Mike everything he knows about a sound booth, but I pointed him in the right direction and took my hands off the wheel, and he has passed me up. He does stuff now that I'm just like, that's above my pay grade. You got it. I'm so thankful for that heart. What they do, Terry, half the time I have to call her when I'm doing it. I'm like, Terry, what's going on with this? I don't understand how to make all this happen. We need people who are willing to jump in and get a hold of that. Greeters. You see parking lot greeters. You say, we've never had those. Yes, but I would love to. You know what a parking lot greeter does? When people pull in the parking lot, they get here early enough to where they just say, good morning, how you doing? Oh, hey, first time guest? Hey, we got a special parking spot for you. Oh, ma'am, it's raining. Here, let me grab this umbrella. We got a whole stack of umbrellas out here. Here, let me help you in with that. Or here, pull up under this carport. I'll get you in. You know why we keep that door locked back there? We don't have anybody to man it, and I don't want to leave it open because we got a bunch of little kids back there. It's not a cool thing to have a wide open door with a bunch of kids on the other side of that door, and who knows what's on the other side of it. But if we had a parking lot attendant, we could use that. Greeters, people at the door who are there purposely just saying, good morning, welcome to Compassion Church, so glad you're here. And then host, you say, what's a host? Once they get in the door, hey, you got kids. Here's a children's ministry area. Here's so-and-so involved with them. Get your kids signed up. So glad to hear. Oh, you need to use the restroom? Right here's the restrooms. You say, really? I've had more than one person ask me, where are the restrooms? And you think, really? Really? Oh, right here's a coffee bar. Here, help yourself. Coffee, water, whatever you want. Here's sanctuary. And then you know what? Maybe sit with them. Because that's the hardest part. They get in, they sit down, they're like, that's what a host does. And then outreach. Volunteers to work the Balloon Fest. Oh, by the way, guess what we're doing after church today? We're putting bags together for Balloon Fest. We'd love to have you stay. I'll get more on that here in just a minute. And I said 5 minutes, and that was 8 minutes ago. And then VBS. Terry asked me this morning, she said, we have 5 people signed up to help for VBS. She said, we're going to need 30. What do we do if we have 5? said, we've already committed it. We've already put it out there. I said, we do what we can. I don't know what else to do. We do what we can and trust the Lord with the rest. Listen, if any of this has sparked your interest, you'd like to help out in any of these areas, listen, you got connection cards in the seat in front of you. On the back, there's a place for you to fill in prayer requests or comments. Write down something you're interested in. Make sure your name and phone number's on there. Hand it to me in the back. Shoot me a text. Mike can make my phone number display on the screen somehow. It's on one of my business cards in the back. Shoot me a text. I'll make sure you get in touch with who you need to get in touch with. But just think about what we could do, what we could accomplish if we answered the help wanted call. Think about the lives that could be changed if we recognize the need and we're willing just to step in. And it could all just start by adjusting our priorities and meeting that real or that felt need. It could either be here in the church, more importantly, it could be something out in the community. But Jesus made the request, help wanted. My question to you this morning, my challenge is will you answer it? Let's pray. Heavenly Father, Lord, thank you for those who have stepped up to meet the challenge of reaching others. God, thank you so much for their hearts. God, sometimes I feel like I put too much on them, and I'm afraid I'm going to burn them out. God, I just pray that you would give us the strength to carry on, to persevere, to do what you would have us to do until you say it's enough and you call us home. But God, just as Jesus requested, I pray for more laborers. I pray for those that will rely upon you. God, those that will put their personal, Lord, feelings of inadequacy and insufficiency out of their mind. And God, they'll just trust you and rely upon you and go. And God, that we will keep the task in the forefront of our mind. God, will not be discouraged, not be distracted, but will be determined to trust and follow you. God, I pray today that you would be with each one of us. Lord, bless those that are going to stay today and help. God, I pray you would bless their food, bless our time together. Let us just honor you and lift you up. Be challenged and encouraged in each other. We love you today and praise you, and thank you for this in Jesus' name. Amen. Real quick, I'm going to